Welcome to Equal Inspired, the inclusive podcast, brought to you by WRKiiT. Keeya Wang-Jones joins us, who is an award-winning human-centered design leader and advocate of equity, equality, as well as diverse and inclusive methodologies across digital platforms. Keeya is a unique hands-on leader and has over 20 years of experience in the tech industry, leading teams across industry domains with over 50 designers, over 30 engineers, and 50 products. And that's ranging from startups to mid-size enterprise establishments. She had a proven track record of guiding teams to take products from proof of conception to market deliveries. And amongst companies and through design agencies, she drove digital experience design to support their digital transformation journeys. And this was to include human-centered product development life cycles. These companies include IKEA and Verbella, where she was an employee, and Google, who was a client at an IoT agency. She's now betting on herself and her trusted co-founder to bring the general public a digital platform that helps them run their media teaching and online coaching businesses. And their goal is to reduce 90% of administrative works from creators and educators so they can show up, they can do what they do best, which is share knowledge and build communities.
I'm excited to talk about a lot of things happening around equality, equity, diversity, and inclusion and how I can help.
Firstly, we would really love to know currently, what makes you feel inspired? What makes you feel motivated?
I think it's just because for the most of the work that I've been doing over the years, I've always had this burning desire to build better experiences. And what does that mean, right? Like, what does building better experiences mean in tech? So therefore, when we learned about human-centric design about 20 years ago, when it's very much human factors, we got to the point where we're like, yes, it's all about the user experience, but I don't think that we were able to dive into all the different sections of different people. It's always been the question of who is your target audience? Who is this product belonging to? And usually that target audience is the mass population. And being able to see that, the more that we build these digital solutions and experiences, I started to notice that we are leaving out a huge amount of population. And we kind of make that excuse in tech that this is great on these ideas, but there are edge cases. Don't worry so much about the edge cases. Build for the mass population. We want to get that right, and then we'll go backlog those edge cases. And I find that that word right there, backlog, for me it is a little bit of, yes, that's a software development lifecycle talk. That's your Scrum Master being able to manage the product. But it means that you're taking people and saying that they are less than in a way. We don't need to worry about their problems. We need to worry about only the mass. And unfortunately, that has always sit with me. Like, why are we, I get we are going to design when it comes down to making the better solutions, and we want to hit the mass population. One, because financially, we want to see our return on investment sort of spark, right? This is a proof of concept. It's working because most of everyone else can use this. But we leave out a huge amount of population when we don't think about everyone else, quotation other, right? We don't think about the equality. And equality is, yes, it could be gender, female, male, or non-binary, but we don't think about the other sectionals as well. And that's where really the money is, where your product is method building has a lot of confidence to be part of that market fit, because you're also answering those same questions and problems for everyone else in different ways, right? So that's where the burning sensation came after 20 years. I'm like, why is this still a hard thing for people to grasp, that when you help one individual with many different sectionals, especially disabilities, you're helping everyone else.
I love what you say there, how that energizes you to work towards doing that. And since your journey being in tech and working with design, over 20 years of experience, you are now the co-founder and CTO of WRKiiT. So we would really love to know more about the mission.
When we decided to do WRKiiT, my co-founder hit me up like a couple years ago. oh my God, I know I have this great idea of democratizing something important. I want to be able to make our product diverse and very inclusive. You have me already at diverse and very inclusive. Like, how are we going to actually accomplish that? And yes, it's COVID, so how fast can we get this product out? But when I think of building software in any kind of technical digital platform and experience, it's not based on the event that's happening in our lives now. It's more that how do we make something meaningful that will scale and that we can touch more than just one situation and make sure that it works for everyone after this situation is gone. And that right there reminds me of what my therapist has said for a long time. She's like, you know what? Remember, this too shall pass. And I'm like, you damn right. This is so true that these events in our lives will pass. But how do we actually start making solutions, thinking forward about it, right? What is this progressive thought that we have? So when we built WRKiiT, the first year was tough, to be honest. First year is like, how do we build something very quickly, and how many mistakes are we going to make? No matter how many articles and just building a startup, you're going to make these mistakes. It's going to happen. So being comfortable with the mistakes that we made, and being able to say, you know what, these are our learning points, but this is all a process. For me, anything that we're trying to build that has to deal with diversity, inclusion is always a process. You're going to learn new things along the way because you're going to be working with different types of people from different types of backgrounds. And so that is the reason why we were like, we're on a mission to pretty much democratize knowledge share. And we want to make sure that we are being able to give a product for individuals to come on and be able to teach knowledge that they have, but also their passion. So not everything has to be collegiate. It can be I paint illustrations and I animate those illustrations. So how do I learn and teach this skill set, and then the next generation or the next people that are using it's like, oh, I learned how to do this sort of animation. Being that we can't accomplish everything all at once, the first thing that we wanted to do was focus on the needs of people in the sense of health first. So fitness and wellness instructors mean something, especially during at the time of COVID, but also just at a large in general. So like my aunt, she may not want to do fitness every day, but she may join a dance class or do a little bit of walking. And how do we actually support people like her, and if there's health reasons behind that, in the African American communities, we have a lot of health reasons: high blood pressure, diabetes, strokes. And these are all things that my family has gone through. My co-founder, her sister has a disability. So how do we make sure that we are covering almost everyone in those areas? Everyone around 70 years old will have a disability. Could be, right? Is the case from statistics showing. So how do we actually put health, fitness, and wellness first? So that was our first goal. The other goal was that because of I get this piece of that we're developing to help prove our concept, but how do we actually take it a little bit further? And that furtherness was coaching. So a lot of us are reconnecting and thinking about, what are we going to do with our lives? What is the career that we're going to choose? There's a lot of content out there, but not enough direction to coach you on like, how do you make that decision when you make those different paths? And since we're going to go there, then why don't we cross these sectionals? Why don't we actually find instructors in these areas that the technology industry is aware of the problem of diversity, but is not willing to go past to do the action stuff for it. So how do we close the gap for that? Meaning, like, for example, if I am coaching someone that is interested in being on WRKiiT to teach wellness, but also want to figure out how to do that digitally, then I'm going to open up that door for them. If it's more like I'm an engineer and I want to learn about wellness and fitness to kind of cope with like the stress of being an engineer, but I also have ideas about how do I teach engineering? I know it's a need. I know that there's representation that's needed. Then how do I do that? So there's going to be a lot of crossover between the two. In the beginning, fitness and wellness and coaching, and during those conversations, it will bleed into other industries. And I think that's very important. I think for us, we're just sort of tired of the excuses of like technology and the tech industry is aware of this problem of diversity. And they say they want to fix it. But what are the actions on how to do that? And I think that WRKiiT helps bridge the gap. One of the biggest pain points is admin. So as all the new instructors are coming aboard and they're trying to figure out, this is so great, I want to just jump on and I want to teach, then they have to deal with like, oh, I need to collect funding, I need to market myself. So there's a lot of that sort of CEO hat for every single person that's coming onto this platform about logistical work. So that is the part of that goal, is that this is a tool to help you come and represent yourself and others into this platform. Teach what you know that best, you have the passion around that, and let us help you get rid of a little bit of that admin work.
I absolutely love that mission. It's so important, like you say, because of those layers of DE&I, what you're doing, creating that space where you can share inspiration and you can learn from one another, because there's so much power in that. What for you makes your heart sing about this mission?
You know, it's funny, I get this question quite a lot. You know, my heart is always pounding with so much passion. I think that's coming from like my ancestors. Like, you got this. You know you have a mission. You are the voice or representation of many. It's not just about you. And I hear my grandmother's voice in that. My grandmother was an educator, and she was teaching at the best way that she can during a time where Black teachers were not welcome. And it was very much of the civil rights, but like, I'm going to make sure that you're able to speak English in the most proper way that I can teach it. And she just came with this spirit of education, and it followed me too. It's kind of like, you know, I'm going to practice her legacy and keep it going. So when I think about what we're doing and our big picture mission, our North Star on how we're going to make this happen, I feel that. I feel it in my heart. I feel it in my bone. I feel it in the decisions that I make. And it's very much of like, this is a tribute to every person of color, women, that we're trying to educate, and there was a block that says you cannot do this because of who you are. And that sits with me. It really literally does. So when I think of like what we're trying to do, it is bigger than us. If we can make this platform work for everyone, great. But if we can help with the foundational layer of women, the LGBTQ community, people of color, then we have already sort of been proactive on that in a spiritual way as well. It's very much of when I think about that heart space, I do think about, wow, this is, like I said, this is just not only about me. This is a huge amount of layers of generations trying to do this. So I have a little capsule that I just received not too long ago from about to be my speeching coach. But she said, you know, write something on this piece of paper, roll it up, and put it in this capsule. And that's just what you're going to take with you all the time when you're about to do any kind of presentation, speaking, or when you're just nervous, right? Like, who's going to help ground me? What is that tether to what my mission is from a heart space? And I had to write, I am my ancestors' greatest, wildest dreams. And that is including the people that come before me, but that really includes the people that I've known on this earth that I'd actually pray and talk to. That is my grandmother. That is my aunt who passed away at 36. That is my other aunt that passed away at 50. And those are the story that goes through my head. If they were here, what kind of person am I showing up to? How do I represent them through what my message is, right? And that's what makes my heart sing. I would give one more example because I still love the day that I went to the university. This was the Art Institute in San Diego, California. And my name is not one of those names where you can pick out what ethnicity I am. Okay, you kind of have to Google me to figure out if I put a picture up, right? So, but you might be like, okay, maybe she's female, or maybe, you know, this is the person that we're dealing with. And I remember the day I walked into class to teach, and there was these two African-American boys in the class, and they stopped everything because I walked in and they were like, yo, did you know our teacher was Black? And I was like, kind of threw it off with the Wang-Jones, right? That's my wife. This is the Wang, I'm the Jones, and we combined together. But it was very, very cute, very, very sweet to see their attention span and their heart sort of like pound. Like this is amazing. We're going to learn from someone that looks like us. Right? And then that's when that was the moment of like putting up the expectations. And it was great because that class wasn't just about them. It was about every other person that came out of the military to be in that class because they heard if I work in technology, I might be able to have a career. And it was my job and my purpose at that time to be like, yes, you can, but this is how it is done. You have to be able to articulate design decisions. You will make great prototypes. You will understand digital experiences. You will understand human-centric design. You will still understand accessibility as well. So all the ground knowledge that I've had for over 20 years, I kind of had to cram that in. But because they saw representation, they soaked it in. And today, they have careers. And it was just like, yes, if there are only 10 of them out of 30 something plus students get careers in this, we're already changing the pendulum of equality and equity and diversity and inclusion and pushing us forward, right? So I just kind of think about that in my head too, as well as the ancestors. And I'm like, this is what makes my heart sing. And I hope that I can bring that. Now I hope it will happen to bring that into WRKiiT.
It will. I can feel that energy, like literally through the screen, Keeya. I feel that energy. I love that energy and the passion that you have and leveraging your own experiences, because you're so right. Representation does matter. And this is why with our podcast as well, we want to amplify the voices of incredible people doing incredible things. And WRKiiT's mission is fantastic. And what you said about your ancestors in terms of like using their legacy to fuel that motivation, that resonates with me so much. For those that we have lost, unfortunately, how can we make them proud every single day, like by putting your power and your energy into something that you actually care about. You mentioned a little bit about the first year at WRKiiT, but you have a background working over 20 years. So to come away from, I guess, stability from organizations where you've had a steady wage as well, maybe a little bit more comfortable. How was that for you? Taking that leap, making sacrifices, being a co-founder.
It was hard, to be honest. It was very much of the dialogue that, am I doing the right thing? I have a provider personality as well, Ellie, which means that I must make income. Okay, that's really what it comes down to, is I must make income in order to be able to provide for my family. And my family is my wife and her mother. My family is my brother and my nieces, my elders I take very seriously. So it's very much of like, is this the right thing? Is this something that I should be doing now? I'm finally at the level of being a global leader, and now I'm deciding to split from that. Does that mean that I'm going to have 10 times the trouble of finding work again if I have to sort of backtrack? What have you been doing for a year? Blah, 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 blah. But I have to say, without my wife's confidence in me to bet on myself, to say, okay, you know what? You've worked so hard for 20 plus years so that you can build a dream. What is that dream? We'll figure out how to fund it. But what is the dream? What is your vision? You're a visionary. What is your vision? Let's do it. Right? No more excuses of like, well, this, and that. She's like, you're still a provider. I still love you. Right? Hopefully we don't go totally bankrupt. But this is something that, you have a lot of passion for. And I've never seen you so extra passionate about something. And mostly because, in a way, it's the IKEA effect. You're building it from scratch. You're putting these pieces together. And when my co-founder, when she speaks about how she wants to build something, I'm like, that's right. We are a good partnership. One, you're a marketing and strategist. I'm not really good at that. I will tell you how we do this technically, how we will scale this, how we will build better experiences. But you're the voice also to help us get the word out and have a strategy around it. So with the partnership of of my co-founder, Shalene Jagasathi, and then my wife support is like, go do this. You saved up for this. You figured out how to sell our home in California to cover us as a provider perspective, right? And be able to still have enough money for emergency funding. This is your time to shine. It's like, wow, but I hear, okay, the investment. Is this going to be also just based on investors? Who are your first investors? Right, the people. The people are my first investors because I know, and I preach this all the time, even to my co-founder, I know that it's going to take us a while to get funded. We have a great idea. We have a lot of passion until we have a really strong client base. We're still in the proof of concept stage. It would be great if it was so easy as our Caucasian counterparts to be like, here's a PowerPoint and this is an idea I have. Give me money, right? But that's not the case. So I've never went into WRKiiT thinking that we're going to get invested immediately. So that's that provider personality that my wife was warning me about. You have to sort of like feel that you are, right? Build this for the first investors, your people. And then the people, that field of dreams, then everyone else will come. So it's just very much of, okay, what you're saying in a nutshell is I need to bet on myself. So if I'm betting on myself and betting on the 20 years of experience that I can bring to this, then we're going to be at least comfortable for that first year and even possibly the second year. When we actually have a product and we're able to go out into the world and get that feedback so that we can enhance it and make it better so that we can move forward, then that allows us to do that. And what if it takes is, it takes 1 year of me doing both. Working at my job at Keeya, love Keeya, definitely doing it, and then doing WRKiiT in the late evenings at night, making sure that I can get it going to some degree of like getting some feedback. And then the next year, because I've taken that risk with the support system that I have between my wife, my co-founder, and her mom, being able to say that is our family support. It might not be 100% financial support because not everyone has that preceded family and friends. It's very much of like, this is what we've saved up for. We wanted to fund our dreams and know that it was guaranteed for at least a couple years. And that's what we did, which makes it a lot better because building a platform, it's not easy. You don't know what you don't know. There's times that the part of being an enterprise company and you are working towards an MVP, you have 10 designers, 10 engineers. It's a lot of resources going towards that. It is a wake-up call when you don't have that. And you're like, okay, so we are going to have to do things a little bit differently. And from a mental perspective, we're going to have to attack our problems quite differently because it is a little bit of the bias that I bring is that, yeah, these are resources. Let's build something. Let's get it out to users right away. For us, it's very calculated. These are resources. This is what we have. This is the budget that's going into do. Let's get it out, this part right away. And that was the fear. The fear was like, I know there's a difference between doing this on our own bootlegged and not being invested, not banking on being invested right away. What can we do with what we have? And then there's that, I was very comfortable in building as many MVPs from start to scratch when you don't see the money really. You know you want to be cost consciousness for the business, but you're like, I don't really feel that. Now you feel it. Now you're like, okay, I feel this. And then what are our goals? Can we stick with our values with the budget that we have, that we are being equal, that we're having equity, that we're having diversity at the best that we can, and can we be as inclusive as we really want to? And if we can't tackle it all, can we get a good portion of it to stick with our values? And that was the biggest fear of it.
There's so much fear in terms of going into the unknown. Yes, we can have that passion, that drive, that dream. And I think our mind at times playing tricks on us when we go into unknown, when we go into a new territory. It's like we get into that state of maybe overthinking. The self-doubt can come in. So the fact that you have that really great support from your wife and your co-founder is incredible, because it can feel quite lonely, going into this new journey, especially when you've been in larger organizations and you've had people to soundboard ideas from.
And it's so true. And on top of that, that first year When we say friend support, it's not friend support like in the sense of financial, but in a way for me it is. And because those friends that are helping, the colleagues that come with the UX design, they want to learn more. They were my mentees coming to help us into this first year. We had someone that does our voiceovers, right? Our voice talent for our videos and our products. There's different people, our advisors that come in and give us advice. This is support of their time. And that's just as crucial as the financial support of our loved ones, right? They're dedicating their time, which equates to me as a financial support, because if we had to go out and we weren't able to afford everything, engineering is costly, but they're able to give in their time, it's worth even more because they believe in that vision. And having people that believe in your vision, believe in the product, believe in that it can help and is much bigger than all of us, then that right there was already quite golden. And that was the start of the first year. Going into the second year, we're validating, right? We're validating that this is going to work, this is happening. How do we actually start making enhancements? But I do value every person that's come in that's like saw this vision, wanted to see this come true, being able to help and support it, because it wouldn't be the product that it is today to gain the necessary feedback to understand where it can go and what we should do if it wasn't for them. And that there is like, that's the WRKiiT team, and that founding team is the family of WRKiiT.
That's a real credit to you as well, though, Keeya, because of the relationships you've built up over the years through the work collaborations, the fact that these people want to help you, want to give you their time. If you think about the skills that you have from your previous roles, from that 20 years of experience in the tech industry, what do you feel has been really useful in pivoting to now CTO, co-founder?
I believe that outside of the technical skills that come with being a CTO or co-founder, what's very much of it's almost the soft skills. And in a way, it's not really soft. I know we use soft a lot when you're like job interview, good communication skills, and so forth, right? But those are actually really hard skills to communicate your idea, to communicate your vision with integrity. Comes easy, but it also comes hard so that people can sort of listen in to your goals. I think over 20 years, I've had to learn how to articulate those decisions. I've had to be able to speak to different levels and adjust my audience of how I deliver those messages for. Being able to train and mentor juniors to mid-levels to seniors was able to see those hidden gems of their talents within each person and being able to say, this is the areas that you should work on, because you have a goal of being a better interaction designer. You have a goal of being a better information architect designer in this UX field. So with that, being able to start a company and see those talents, like the friends that came along, the colleagues that wanted to be a part of this story from the beginning, I had to look into what is the hidden things that you need to learn, because we all have to kind of find our stability, whatever that stability is. You should take some talents with you that you learn from here. So how do we actually progress you forward? This is people first sort of management. And I think that's very needed. I wasn't lucky to always have people first management. It was always business first. This is what we want to do. A little disappointing, right? Because it's always like the marketing side that says, we are people first, we la 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 la. We want to be able to do these different things to support our people, but then when the actions happen, it's not there. So how do we make sure that when we walk our talk, we say, we are people first, what is it that you want to bring to WRKiiT, and then how I can scale you up. And that came with 20 years of watching people grow. And when they grow, then I grow. So there's that relationship, and it's wonderful. Working at IKEA was one of the things that I helped try to produce. People will come in. I have an interest in UX. I'm studying it. I want to do better. Then let's see how much you can grow in a certain amount of time. What are the other skill sets you have? Because in these digital experiences, it comes with so many different skill sets, but you can say, this is my primary area that I want to grow in. And these are the second and third areas that I know I need to support that primary area. And that's how I was able to sort of talent resource for this. And I think it's very important in putting people first.
Some skills there that are really important: communication, of course, and leveraging all of that experience that you have. This journey of being an entrepreneur, there can be highs, there can be lows, right? It's never, if only, just plain sailing. But I guess that's what kind of makes it exciting and what challenges us. So how do you approach self-care as an entrepreneur, giving you time?
The first year, I was horrible at it. I was horrible at self-care, mostly because I was like, yeah, I got to manage having a job and I want to do this. But it got better pretty much in middle of that first year. Started to learn how to really balance my life. And then the second year, with the help, is like, okay, I'm going to just focus on this for a year. But I still need to have that self-care. The practices that I were doing towards the last year, I need to kind of carry that on, which meant that I do need reminders. Reminders on my phone that alerts me to go eat, because I do have I have an invisible disability. It's for ADHD, and in this way, it's also my superpower, which means that I can focus on something for a very long amount of time because there's so much of passion, there's so much dopamine pumping through my mind. That's like, you are in this. This is great. You're talking, you're directing, you're making this product, you're capturing everything, and it's very detail oriented too. Because of that, that means that I might forget a little bit of that self-care. So I have to be like, what techniques can help me remember to do things? So one is, I need to remember to eat. I must set an alarm. This is time to stop whatever you're doing and make sure you have a good lunch. Make sure you have plenty of snacks in front of you. This is time to stop. Why don't you go do a few push-ups? Get the body adrenaline running. You're stuck in a certain problem. Turn the computer off and go do something with your hands, which paint the wall, put something together, work on this Lego bonsai tree for a couple of minutes, right? It's just kind of like, where's the joy, so that energy keeps going. And doing that, I have found a way of like, all right, these are very good things of taking care of, but I think the best thing of self-care is finding some joy in something that you are really interested in doing. Maybe it's learning something on the side for your company, but you have a lot of passion around that too. Maybe it's just honestly playing your video games for a few minutes, but to disconnect so you can come back refreshed. Whatever that is, for me, it was like I had to sort of find my own techniques so that I don't forget to take care of myself, because if I don't, then everything suffers, right? It's almost business imperative, just as much as ED&I is, to make sure that you're able to work with the best, you're able to show up with the best intentions and not feel like you're coming down. So yeah, I had to make some physical changes, as well as a lot of reminders.
Yeah, you have to remember that you as an individual, your well-being, your soul, everything about you is so important, because that's what exudes out of you when you're working on this mission. So you want to make sure that you're energized, that you're looking after yourself, that you're doing everything that you can. And what advice would you give to newbie entrepreneurs?
One is more of a practical advice. So one advice would be that if you're starting an idea, whatever that idea is, do not quit your day job. Okay? There's a lot of investors and a lot of mental pressure that for them to know that you take what you're doing passionately and seriously, you must quit your job and focus on that. That is great for a certain demographic, with funding, with however they get it, to be able to do that. Not everyone has that sort of situation. You have mothers and fathers and families that people have to provide for, that they just cannot quit their job even though they have a great idea. They need to be able to balance and hustle a little bit more. I do say that when you are budgeting out your first year, always add at least another 30% to that, because no matter how many articles you read about startups and this is what they make a mistake, don't make this mistake, you're going to make mistakes, and they're good mistakes to learn from. Don't beat yourself up because of why aren't we out there more. I will also say that it's important to understand your competitive analysis, but don't get emotionally caught up in it. The reality is that your competitors are well resourced. Everyone's situation is different. Even if it's another startup that's doing similar ideas to you, everyone's situation is different. You have to work in the powers and the means that you have. You can see it as an inspiration. Yay, they're doing this. One day we'll get that too. But it's not as important as your day-to-day of what you're able to do. And that's super crucial to understand. I think it was very much of a struggle for me and my co-founder to see all these competitors and what I consider it taking tech for granted, being that this product is already built. So people are used to just using the end results of a product and not really understanding what it takes to build a digital platform. And so there's a lot of unknowns. You might see something that's like, wow, they have this great new feature that allows them to record a podcast immediately online. You're like, yes, that's great, but it takes this API talks to this system, talks to the DB here, talks to all the technical things that might be able to do that. And it may take another 6 months before you even have that feature. So there's a lot of this estimation and competitive analysis that people do in the beginning. And then we did it too. We sort of fell into that trap. But it doesn't mean that you have to be exactly the same, because again, everyone's situation is quite different. I will also say that take some time for yourself, like write down and have it close to you of like what your goal is. What is your vision? Why are you still doing this product together? I have a post-it of just me and my co-founder, and it says, these ladies are building something in a garage. And that's the mentality that we have. I keep it close to me because when I'm building it and when I'm running into problems, I need to see something that reflects the relationship of the person that I'm building this with. And that's a constant reminder. My co-founder also has a painting of her and I. I have a big fro. She has her straight hair because she's Asian, Australian, British. But it's like a reflection of who we are, bringing our worlds together, building something with a higher mission for women, for people of color, for the LGBTQ community, and so forth. But that's a reminder of why we're doing this. Because when it gets hard, which it will, you constantly need something to inspire you. So I would say that from a practical perspective and from like a visionary perspective, your perseverance, your ambition will show in that product, and it will show when you speak about it. But if your heart is not in it and your passion is not really in it, and we have granted those exhausting days where you're like, I can't speak about this anymore, I'm just ready to go live, that is something to be okay with, right? Have the confidence. Those feelings will pass as it gets more mature, as you mature with your product, as you mature with your audience. Those feelings will pass. And I think that's where I'm personally at right now. It's like, if you've come this far, you better finish. You better get this done. You better go out there and get this wrapped up and get people on it so you can learn more. That's the biggest drive. You will learn more of how this is supposed to work. And that learn more for new people that are coming into this entrepreneur startup shift is that product market fit. It's like, how am I doing this with actual people? How do we make sure it's a market fit? Because you're talking to those actual people. You just got to get something enough in a stable position to collect more information.
Such powerful advice, Keeya. Thank you for sharing. And how can the community get involved? How can they support what you're doing at WRKiiT?
Well, right now on the homepage of WRKiiT, we do have a newsletter link. It's basically just sign up, because when we go live, we'll go contacting those people again. It will come through email. And if you can also directly LinkedIn. In LinkedIn, you can find me. My name is Keeya Wang-Jones. So I'm the only Wang-Jones with Keeya. And then, and if you see another Wang-Jones, and she's this beautiful Asian woman, that is my support system. Her name is Tai. So you can find me on LinkedIn as well. But if you want to just be a part of it, get into our newsletter so that we can reach out to you. As instructors, We will find out if you're an instructor or a coach or have this passion to share knowledge. We'll also contact you if you are wanting to be more of a participant to these classes. We'll want to make sure to understand what are your desires, what do you want to learn, what are the things that you feel like is holding you back, and how can we support you and connect you with the right instructors. So that is the first thing to do.
For anyone watching, for anyone listening, please do that. Give WRKiiT some love. If we kind of dive a little bit into, I guess, like biases and inequalities, how do you personally feel that they affect technologies and products?
It's quite interesting because we understand biases at sort of a surface level. I think it's hard for us to sort of dive into that other deeper level. It's almost, how do you pinpoint biases when it happens? You know, how do we pinpoint microaggressions when it happens? And that can come across like looking for a career job with a certain tech company, going into those interviews and not seeing any representation, going into the company and not seeing representation or seeing a little bit of that segregation between communities in the company, right? But for the tech spaces, like the digital products of how we're actually trying to build a pipeline of solutions, I think the best thing is that we need to speak to more individuals. We need to have more sectional interviews through user research and finding out what problems they are having with the technology we're building today. And that means going outside the box a bit. And when I say that is that there's edge cases. We know they exist. And it should not be something that's just always backlogged. And that's why I have issues with like, what are we really backlogging? Why are we backlogging? There's a lot of questions that needs to be answered if there's a certain feature that's being backlogged. One of the areas that I really think about is that the curb effect, which is basically when architecture of streets are being created with sidewalks, we have a sort of a curb that allow wheelchairs to go up. And this is something that my spouse speaks about it a lot, and I've been reading and studying it as well. Because once that was created, it was able to help people with like people that were delivering packages and they need a dolly to move up the curb. Wheelchairs will be able to go up the curbs. When you're shopping and you have your shopping cart, so everyone's able to feel the benefits of this curb effect that's built onto our sidewalks today. And that was an edge case. We need to build something to help someone with disabilities to be able to go from point A to point B. How do we do that? Because that edge case was solved, it solved so many things for so many other people. And we use it today. We don't even think about it. And that's what I mean by the pipeline of trying to make a change. And so if we want better products, in order to do that, we need to understand them from every human perspective, especially our underrepresented groups, especially the different sectionals. Like, how do we create equality and equity in our products? How do I make sure that when you're Googling black, just the color black, you're not going to get like hundreds of black men, hundreds of black women, and it gets more specificity on like, how do we actually accomplish this? Something that Google was working on, I believe, images, cameras. How do we get the actual right complexions of this individual? And it's not too washed out for someone that looks like you, Ellie, and too dark for someone that looks like me. So it's just very much of like, when we think about these different crossroads that we have to be able to answer for, that really comes down to really understanding all of your users. Change the color of your digital product. Can people with visual impairments, color blindness still understand what they're seeing? Right? Purposely make things really hard so we can figure out what are our downfalls, like what are the pitfalls of what we're trying to solve for. And I think that's really, really important. And I honestly don't think that the tech industry should make excuses of why we can't do that anymore. It's tech. It's 2022, and we have the technology to make things better.
What questions do you think we can ask ourselves to challenge our own biases?
It's very much of like, if we have these thoughts in our head, like, can this work? It's almost this questionnaire. Can this work for someone with visual impairments? Can this work for someone that has audio, hearing impairments? Can this, if we start with disabilities, can this work for the most extreme cases as well as the least extreme? Are we checking some boxes? We won't get all of the answers right away. Because it's hard, right? Like it's not a checklist. It's almost like you have a little bit of that checklist, but it's not a full checklist Bible of like everything with everyone. But it's something that we can use as a way of a tool to get more in. So if I have a checklist, so I have a checklist that says, can this work for your mother-in-law? She has this, 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 and that. Can this work for your aunt? Can this work for your friend who's deaf? And when you're talking and when you're showing these videos, does this? How do we actually make this work? Can this work for someone that's visually impaired with color blindness? I have a breakdancing friend that's colorblind. Had no idea because we're always dancing, right? And then I was showing like, here's an app. What do you think? And he's like, I can't read that. It's like the same to me. This red, green, and blue is the same to me. So I'm looking at different contrasts. I had no idea that button was there because it's too light, right? So make your personal checklist. Think of your family members. Think of your friends. Think of your colleagues that have these different impairments. Invisible disabilities, physical disabilities, and so forth. Try to answer for them and then go actually test it with them.
How have biases affected your own life?
In the beginning of my career, there was a lot of bias, right? This is quite a long time ago, 2001, and mostly cultural biases, things that, again, are out of your control. So for me, for example, just job interviewing and the microaggressions that come with that. So there was one person that I was interviewing at a company, and they were looking at my resume, and there was a question about my education level. That question was like, oh, you went to an art school, so you're an artist. I went to an art school because I love art, I love design, and that's what was available for me, instead of going to engineering technical school. But it was questioned, my educational background. During that, it was very much of like, then what college did your parents go to? So there's an assumption that my parents even went to college. And I'm like, I'm the first college graduate in my family. So you're making an assumption that my parents actually went to college. They did not. They come from an all poor background. They gave me the resources as needed, as provided as they can. So a lot of the biases are questions that are meant for a different demographic, and you know that in the moment. You're like, these aren't questions that's actually speaking to who I am as an individual. These are questions that you give to the Caucasian male that has parents that went to college. you know, so those kind of microaggressions are really, really difficult to navigate, because I don't think it's more of the awareness. You see that. But then there's a safety net of like, well, I need to provide for my family. I know this stuff might come up. This is not a company that I'll probably be with forever, but I need to build my resume. I need to build the experience. So I need to tell myself, I need to kind of push that aside so that I can get to the bigger picture of my career. And that happened quite a lot for the first 10 years of my career. And that's quite exhausting when every time you go into an interview that you're trying to figure out, what personal branding do I have for that person in that interview? When the masses says that you're not good enough, that we're almost giving you a handout opportunity, so you should be grateful. And you're like, no, you're giving me an opportunity, and even if you think it's a handout, I'm going to take it above and beyond. I'm going to always deliver above and beyond, because I know that adds to my career growth no matter what. So a lot of BS in the beginning. And then I ended up working with much more people that had a little bit more representation in their company, but also was woke enough to understand the history of like people of color in the tech industry who wanted to make change. One would be it's funny, an international boss. He's Norwegian. He has a black wife. He's a great person to work with. And he was like, I get it. So how do I support you and your career growth? What are the things and the tasks that can help you grow? Because I think one of the complications that people think is that because you work for a big company, or a small, medium-sized, whatever that company is, you're getting experience. But what they need to understand is that it's called the quality of experience. If you're giving the best projects, again, to the Caucasian male to support and they drive it, then what about everyone else? They don't get that opportunity to work on those same quality projects. So they get the better experience and it goes from one job to another while you're still kind of like cleaning up what you have. So I had to speak about that. That's great that there's experience being given, but I want quality experience. And anyone that looks like me should be getting quality experience that helps them grow. And it's not always sort of like, maybe this project, maybe you're not ready for that project. Give them a seat at the table and let them prove themselves. Don't deny them immediately right away because they don't look like you, they don't talk like you, they have to build their own experience. So it's very important that the biases that I come across, even the large companies that have schools that they represent, right? Like we have this school, if you join us, we'll be able to get this education and then get rejected. It's just kind of like, how do we deal with those rejections? Because the world has already rejected us quite a lot. So I think a lot of it, for me, was just so much perseverance and being able to shut down the dialogue that's like, you're not good enough because XYZ says you're not good enough. Even though even if it's like, they don't know they're saying you're not good enough, but that's what you hear because for generations after generations, we hear this and then it's embedded. And then we're like, oh my God, I didn't get that job because X, Y, and Z. I'm not white enough. I'm not talented enough. I'm not experienced enough. And you're like, no, I really am. Maybe it's just more that I need to kind of buffer that dialogue of negativity with some positivity and what do I need to do that's better. I think the tech industry in general needs to give more feedback, proper feedback, and not feedback that's like, oh, we can't give feedback because of legal reasons. Maybe that's the case, but it doesn't help us from an equality perspective, an equity perspective, diversity, and inclusiveness if we don't get the feedback so that we know what we need to improve so we can apply again. Because there's one thing I can say, when you are sort of quote unquote the other and you're in a minority, you have perseverance. You're so used to getting no's and rejected. You're like, tell me what I need to do. I'm going to do it. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to be like, I did it. So what now? Right? Like I did this. I worked on this. I built this skill set. You can't tell me no for so long. So I believe in that. And I think that's what makes the change. And it's been happening for 20 plus years to the point where I was just like, the more positive I go into a situation, the more happy accidents I have, the more confidence that I have, then all they need to do is be able to give me feedback. And I know what to do with that. I have the tool sets to take that feedback and actually do something. Then to feel like there's no support. This is the same story from generations that my parents told me, that it's always a white world. It's always a white man's world. So you have to work 10 times harder. Well, now it's like, yeah, I will work 10 times harder, but I'm going to also work smarter. So how do we actually do that? And I think that's the biggest difference of what we're going through today.
The whole concept of the feedback and just being constructive with that is so powerful. If you could turn back time, and let's say if you could talk to your 18-year-old self, what would you tell her?
Wow. So that 18-year-old self, I would be super diligent and be like, you need to find an internship right now. You need as much real world life experiences and learn how technology works for humans like yesterday. This is great that you enjoy art. It's great that you're exploring different things. I'm so happy that you're trying piano again for the 18th time of your life. However, you and tap dancing and all these great extracurricular activities, yay, that's enjoyable. But you need to hunker down and really find an internship that is now supporting the way that technology is heading. Graphic design, how are we going to do that digitally? Motion graphics, 18-year-old self. Granted, action script, flash, gaming, design, and the development and engineering, go get a company that's actually doing flash games and learn how logic works, learn how to build things that are emotional. That's what I would say. I think I played around a lot in my first couple of years of college. I was like, wow, they have like glass stain. I went to an art school. Like, way too many options. Way too many options to play around. Oh, I'm going to do paint on glass animation. Awesome. I made a film. Yay. I'm going to double major into multimedia, web. This sounds really cool. Like, there was really no sort of like direction. It was just so much. And at the time I didn't know I was ADHD. So if you throw all these options in front of me and they sound all so much fun, the dopamine is like, yes, do this, do that, do this. Don't forget you need to graduate. So still focus on your thesis, but have some fun here. As that was fun, I think from a professional career growth, while I'm having fun, I should have been working at an internship and learning how the real world operates.
Thank you so much for sharing, Keeya. I'm so excited to continue following what you're doing at WRKiiT and also your journey with public speaking and all of the exciting things you're going to be doing.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on here. This has been lovely. I love also what WRKiiT is doing. I love the name as well. And I think when we have people like you, and I'm going to correct that, all right? I know when we have people like you and building this mission, our worlds of diversity and inclusion will start to blend even more. And then we can get to the heart of problems of like, how do we solve for different people, crossing different sectionals? Because without these platforms, without the way of talking about this and explaining and just the ongoing conversation to support this big vision is a social responsibility for all of us. And it can't just be on top of mind when we have the worst horrific human things happen to us. It has to be top of mind all the time. So thank you for having me on here.
Thank you, Keeya, for your kind words. I really appreciate that. And it's so true. Unity is so important, working together on this mission if we want to make a change and make an impact. Thank you for listening to today's episode, and we hope you're feeling inspired. If you are, please feel free to like, share, subscribe, and join us on our mission to create a diverse, inclusive, and equitable universe. This podcast is brought to you by WRKiiT, a mission-driven business working to diversify tech teams through refined talent acquisition, complemented by diversity and inclusion consulting. As an Azure Heroes inclusive leader, we aim for teams to cultivate a strong sense of belonging and equity. Find us on Twitter and LinkedIn. We welcome your feedback, questions, and would love to hear from you. Join us next time on Equal Inspired.